Chapter 32. The Doors. The fourth level. Dread's Keep.
"Where are we?"
Crinan groaned as he laid his head back on the stone floor beneath him. He stared up at the high ceiling of wherever he was, a large chandelier providing flickering orange light all throughout the room. He heard the sound of movement, of talking and laughing, forks scraping against plates and mugs being slammed against tables. The smell of roasted meat and steamed cabbage filled his nostrils. Before Crinan could stand, however, Malinka's face came into vision. She stared down at him with a smirk on her face. Crinan tried to pull his head back a little out of surprise, but couldn't move it any further than it already was. Instead, he stared up at Malinka as her face drew nearer and nearer to his.
"We almost didn't make it,"
Malinka whispered as her lips hovered over his. Crinan could feel her skin brushing against his, and before he knew it, his heart had started pumping hard again. Not from fear or overexertion, but from anticipation.
"You saved me,"
Crinan whispered, his soft word transferring from his lips to hers. Malinka smiled and placed her hands on the sides of Crinan's head.
"Hold still,"
she replied with a mischievous giggle. Crinan couldn't help but follow her orders. The eagerness to discover what was about to happen was overwhelming. Malinka pulled back just a bit, and then Crinan felt a sudden, sharp pressure in his chest. He gasped, and his back arched. Malinka belted a wicked laugh, and Crinan's fingers wrapped around the haft of a spear that had passed through his bones and into the stone floor beneath him. He grunted, trying to pull the weapon out, but stopped when he saw Malinka's cheeks split open from the corners of her mouth to the bottoms of her ears. 2 rows of dagger-like teeth glistened in the light as saliva dripped down from their points. Crinan gasped and reached out, trying to stop whatever was about to happen, but before he could do anything, her jaw unhinged. Malinka pulled her head back slightly, and then with lightning speed she lunged forward, snapping her mouth shut and ripping Crinan's lower jaw from his head. Crinan wanted to scream, but he could only gurgle. He wanted to run, but he was pinned to the ground. All he could do was lay there on the floor of Dread's Keep and watch himself be consumed. Long, gray faces suddenly surrounded him. They looked down at him with absent expressions and blotted out his vision of the ceiling above him. They stood silently, their gazes piercing the flesh that the spear hadn't. Crinan watched as Malinka's neck began stretching to an impossible length, the skin connecting her head to her shoulders ripped free, and Crinan saw the throbbing, scaled, tubular body of a snake emerge from within what had been Malinka's body. Her head remained, however, a grisly helmet to the snake demon that had been hiding within. Its body twisted and turned in the air until its face was once again hovering over Crinan's.
"I will break you,"
the snake whispered using Malinka's voice. A forked tongue emerged from its mouth and slid through the blood that was gushing from where Crinan's lower jaw had once been.
"You are mine."
At that, the snake's jaw unhinged again and the mouth shot forward. Crinan once again tried to scream, and as he felt more of his face ripping away from his head, everything suddenly went black.
"Crinan!"
He was lost in the darkness. Images and sensations lingered in his mind. The terror of everything he had experienced, the pain he had endured. Crinan couldn't think. He couldn't focus. He couldn't wake up.
"Crinan, wake up!" "I don't want to."
Crinan's voice echoed in the darkness around him.
"It's too much."
Crinan listened to his own voice and lowered his head. He reflected on the idea of giving up. The thought of it had certainly crossed his mind while he had been conscious, but hearing the words spoken in his own voice had a different effect on him. Was he giving up? Could he really handle it anymore? Thwack! Crinan's eyes shot up and he snarled. A black night sky hung above him, a great prairie of yellow grass underfoot. He felt a cool, gentle breeze caress his skin and took a breath, tasting the clean air that filled his lungs. He thought he could sit in silence for a moment and enjoy the serenity of being able to see for miles. The thought was a comfort. The idea warmed his body. But then a shadowy figure stepped into his vision.
"Hey, man."
The figure was anthropoidal. 2 arms, 2 legs, stood upright, but was covered in shadow. Crinan realized he was in the expanse, that the figure before him was shrouded in dark mist like Sage had been, but it wasn't Sage. Crinan realized it was Lucas.
"Dude, are you okay?"
the voice asked.
"You look rough."
Crinan snarled at the words and wanted to yell at Lucas for being a fucking idiot. Of course he wasn't okay. What would have compelled the dumb kid to even ask such a thing? Crinan snorted and shook his head. Something told Crinan not to be too harsh. He was exhausted. He didn't have the energy to maintain his walls. So he decided to do something he rarely did. He allowed himself to be open and vulnerable.
No, I'm not okay."
"Hey, man," Lucas said with the kind of soft and comforting tone that only a hopeful teenager could offer.
"I get it. You're going through some real shit right now."
Crinan nodded his head and looked up at the starry sky above him.
"Just ready for all this to be over. Whatever that means."
"Well, it will be soon, dude," Lucas replied with his hopeful, chipper tone. "Just wait and see. Me and Dad are working hard on getting you out. We won't let you down." Crinan snorted, and after a few moments his snort turned into a full-on laugh. Finally, he looked over at Lucas and shook his head.
"You believe in yourself, huh?"
Crinan asked.
"What else is there to believe in?"
Lucas asked. His tone was sincere, no sarcasm or inflated ego present.
"Like, with so much wrong with the world, with all the gods and moons and suns and everything that people put their faith in, look at how the world is. I don't think enough people believe in themselves. That's why everything's so shitty."
"That's pretty deep for a kid," Crinan said. "Did your dad teach you to think that way?"
"Dad always tells me to follow my own path,"
Lucas replied with a shrug.
"He doesn't force any kind of belief on me. Just tells me to follow my heart and my mind."
"That's cute," Crinan said with a sigh as he turned away and looked back up at the stars. "So, all this is fake, right? I'm in some kind of computer right now?"
"It's whatever you want it to be,"
Lucas replied.
"What's it matter? If you're conscious and you're experiencing it, then who's to tell you what's real and what's fake?"
Crinan shrugged. "I never really thought of things that way."
"Well, maybe give it a try then,"
Lucas said. Crinan couldn't see the boy's face, but something was telling him that he was smiling behind that black mist.
"If you let others decide what's real for you, then you're living their version of life. Doesn't seem... I don't know."
He paused for a moment as if to think on his words.
"Living how others expect or want you to doesn't really make you... what's the word? Unique, real, and individual. You get the picture, right?"
"Sure." Crinan gave Lucas a slight sigh and nodded his head. "You're a smart kid."
"Thanks,"
Lucas chirped.
"Well, I guess it's time for you to wake up now. Your friends are waiting for you, and you still have a lot of work to do."
"My friends?" Crinan replied.
"Malinka?" "Yep,"
Lucas said.
"See you next time, man. You can do it."
"Wait, Crinan tried to protest. He wanted to tell Lucas about Anders' strange behavior, to get Sage's advice on what to do, but everything vanished before he could.
"Congratulations, citizen. You have shown the world that your faith in Dura Anna and our great Emperor Sidro is mightier than the doubt that you hold within your heart. Your devotion to those that give you life and freedom will deliver you from this place if you hold fast and continue to lay your fate in their hands. Remember, citizen, as it was spoken in the Book of Devon, chapter 32, verse...
No, skip! Crinan tiredly grunted at the annoying voice in his head.
Congratulations, you have conquered Dread's Keep, level 2, plus 350 million rank. Congratulations, Pretty Kitty 6969420. You have advanced in ranking. Previous rank, 17,656,158,472. New rank, 17,306,158,472. Previous percentile, 58%. New percentile, 57%.
Crinan opened his eyes, sat up, and looked around. Lucas had been right. Everyone was there waiting for him. He scanned their faces, seeing Melinka, Dolly, Edmund, and Demian.
He's up!
Dolly chirped. She reached out and pointed at Crinan.
BTB, he's alive!
Edmund rushed to Crinan's side and supported his back with a strong hand. "There we go," he said with a kind tone. "Easy does it. No sense in straining yourself." "You're all," Crinan whispered. His mouth felt dry, hoarse. It felt like if he talked too much, his throat would crack. "You're all okay,"
Yar.
Dolly replied.
I mean, not counting the existential dread Thornscale put us all through.
"It has been a very trying time," Demian stated. "I do not know how long we have been in this keep. Hours, days, weeks." "I don't know," Crinan replied with a shake of his head. Where are we now?" "It seems we are in a place where we can rest," Edmund said, "though I worry over what awaits us behind those." He pointed at 2 massive doors that reached to the ceiling. "What are those?" Crinan asked, looking up at the peaks of the thick arched wooden doors. "Well, they are doors, you precious thing, but where do they lead? We have been wondering that ourselves," Demian answered. "Though, with how things have gone for us so far, our guesses have not been very optimistic." "I expect it is the end," Edmund said frankly as he stood to his feet, "whatever that may mean." A look of concern and defeat spread over his usually stern face. "These trials have stretched us beyond the point a person should be. I have tasted madness, skirted on the edge of insanity. After everything I've endured over however many years I've been here, I'll quit it," Demian snapped. He walked over and jerked Edmund to his feet. "None of us will succumb to despair. The fact that we have all gotten this far is proof enough of our strength. Stand tall, Sir Edmund. Your fight is not over." He then turned to Crinan. "And you?" He walked over, took him by the arm, and lifted him to his feet. "You're stronger than sitting on the floor. We are all counting on you. Not just us in this room, but every prisoner in the hells. You have brought hope to where it never could have existed before. It is now your duty and your responsibility to complete what you've started." Demian nodded his head at Crinan and gave his upper arm a supportive squeeze. "There is no giving up, Crinan Jameso. You fight, or we all fail. There is no release of death here. It will all only get worse if you convince yourself you're not strong enough."
What my brother is trying to say,
Melinka added as she stepped forward into Crinan's view,
is that we're not dead and we will get through this. But the 4 of us, 5?
Dolly spat with an eye roll.
Yes.
Melinka corrected herself.
The 5 of us are all in this together. If we want to get out of this, we all work as a team.
She approached Crinan and looked him in the eye. She spoke to him, not scornfully, but as an equal.
Can we all do that, please?
Crinan stared back at Melinka and thought about her question. It was clearly one that she had formulated specifically for him. He was aware that he wasn't exactly known for being a team player. He looked at her and folded, silently nodding his head.
Thank you, Crinan,
Melinka whispered. She gave him a small smile and turned to the others.
Then we're all in this together. Whatever's behind those doors, we will all face as one group. We will work together, we will fight through and remain strong. Remember, everyone, we're not just fighting for ourselves here. We're fighting for each and every soul who is trapped in this damned place. There's certainly no turning back now. There's just...
She motioned to the doors.
Those. BTB, that was epic, girl!
Dolly shouted in an excited tone.
You a bad bitch for show. Thanks.
A smug expression passed across Malinka's face, and she stood a little taller.
We don't have time to waste, everyone. Get yourselves ready. It's time for us to move.
At that, and as a team, everyone turned and walked toward the doors.